The worst part of this story is that it's true. This creepy tale actually happened. And today we're going to tell you all about it. But first, for more terrifying tales, please consider subscribing. It helps out tremendously. And once you're done, turn your lights off and keep your doors locked because we're about to go ghost hunting. It was winter in Pennsylvania. The kind of winter that seeps into your bones and lingers there like a permanent resident. On December 12, 1998, the small town of Breezewood was buried under a thick blanket of snow and ice, and a dense fog hung in the air, muffling all sounds and obscuring all visions. For most people, it was just another day in the quiet countryside. But for some, it would become the day their lives changed forever. Among them was a man named Sam, who was employed as a night shift worker at a nearby factory. As the clock struck 7 that evening, Sam clocked out and headed toward his car. The weather was decent, so he left his windows down and drove out of the factory gates. His route took him along a desolate mountain road known locally as Coffin Ridge Road, which connected the town to his home. It was usually a quick and uneventful drive. But tonight, the heavy rain had made the journey a treacherous one. As Sam rounded a sharp bend in the road, his headlights cut through the rain and fog, illuminating a figure standing by the roadside. He slammed on the brakes, surprised by the sudden appearance of a person in the middle of such a remote stretch of road. He couldn't see her face, but what he saw next sent shivers down his spine. She was wearing a torn white dress that billowed in the wind. Her long white hair obscured much of her face, but he could make out the movement of her lips as if she were speaking, though no sound reached his ears. He considered driving past her, assuming she would move away from the car. But something in her posture, the way she stood motionless with one arm raised in a silent plea, made him stop. He knew he should keep going, that there was no one out here in this weather unless they were crazy or stuck. But he found himself inching closer to the mysterious woman. He rolled down his window, his voice shaking slightly as he asked, "Can I help you?" The woman remained still for a moment, her eyes fixed on something in the distance. Then slowly, she turned her head toward him, and that's when Sam saw her eyes. They glowed with an eerie gray shimmer, devoid of any warmth or life. "Please," she whispered, her voice so faint it was almost drowned out by the storm. "Take me home. It's not far." Hesitantly, Sam opened the back door, and she slid into the car. The moment she touched the seat, a blast of freezing cold air shot toward him, as if she had brought the chill of the grave itself into the car. The temperature plummeted, and goosebumps erupted on Sam's arms. His heart pounded against his ribs, and he stole glances at her in the rearview mirror. Her face was hidden in the shadows, but every time he looked away and then back, she was staring at him, her eyes unwavering. He didn't want to admit it to himself, but fear was constricting his throat. What should he do? Should he call the police, turn back, pretend he never saw her? But as she turned in the seat, he saw a faint, unsettling smile playing on her lips. "Where exactly do you live?" he finally asked, hoping that the question would break the silence and maybe banish the growing terror in his chest. "You know," she rasped, her voice like dry leaves scraping across concrete. "When we get there." Sam swallowed hard, trying to quell the rising panic within him. He turned the key in the ignition, and the car lurched forward, its headlights piercing the thick fog ahead. The road was narrow and winding, lined with tall trees that loomed over the car like silent spectators. Their bare branches clawed at the sky, and the wind whispered through them, sounding like mournful cries. As the minutes passed, the storm seemed to grow in intensity. Rain lashed against the windshield, blurring his vision, and the fog thickened, wrapping itself around the car like a shroud. Every few minutes, Sam would catch sight of a tall, shadowy man standing by the road. He was always at the edge of his vision, disappearing whenever Sam tried to focus on him. Suddenly, he heard it, a whisper, and it seemed to come directly from inside his head. Startled, he whipped around, his eyes frantically searching the back seat. She was gone. Had she been there at all? He glanced back at the road. Up ahead, the road surface deteriorated, becoming rougher and rockier. The dense fog offered no respite from the bumps and turns. Then he saw him again, the tall, shadowy man. He stood right beside the road, his presence a dark silhouette against the backdrop of the raging storm. For a moment, their eyes met, and Sam felt a jolt of recognition, as if he had known this man in another life. But before he could dwell on it, the man vanished into the swirling mists. A chill raced down Sam's spine. Where was the road going? Why did the woman beckon him here? Was he walking into a trap? These questions echoed in his mind, but there were no answers to be found in the raging storm. And then, just as abruptly as it started, the whispering began again. It brushed against his ear, icy fingers tracing the contours of his skull. "I never said you'd get there alive," it hissed. Adrenaline surged through him. He whirled around. In the back seat sat the woman, her face now pressed against the window. But her eyes were no longer the grayish orbs he had seen before. They were black, bottomless pits that seemed to absorb the very light around them. Her mouth hung open impossibly wide, releasing thick white vapor into the air. Before he could process what he was seeing, she was in the driver's seat. Her laughter echoed in the small space, sharp and piercing. Her features began to dissolve into a swirling black mist, taking on a shape that was both human and not. In a flash, she was out, her ghostly form disappearing into the swirling mists. With a jerk, the car veered off the road, plunging into the darkness below. When the police arrived at the scene, they found the wrecked car at the bottom of the cliff. Inside was the lifeless body of Sam, his face frozen in a mask of terror. But the girl in the white dress was nowhere to be found. Some say that on certain stormy nights, you can still see the wrecked car at the bottom of the cliff, the lifeless man inside. And beside him sits the girl in the white dress, patiently waiting for her next ride. Now, before we move on, here's another terrifying video that you might enjoy. And remember, if you dare to watch it alone, don't blame us when you hear a knock on your door tonight.